Hello, everyone, and welcome to the All Sports Betting Podcast. We're going to do two podcasts this weekend, one covering Saturday's matches and one covering Sunday's matches. We'll get cracking with the Saturday one now. Joining me for that, I've got Steve, as always. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Kev. How about yourself? Hope life's treating you well.
Yeah, not too bad at all. Pretty busy weekend in terms of football. So we'll get cracking straight away. We'll head towards France, first of all, I think. Big-ish game in the second division on Saturday afternoon. Sees third place Lorient in action. They take on Nancy, who, well, they're just above the relegation zone, aren't they, at the moment? How do you see this one going?
Yeah, you're right. It is a big clash between two teams who got relegated. So there were two of the favourites to go up at the start of the season. But the way I see it, Lorient easily the best team in French League 2 this season, and it's they're quite well clear in terms of the squad that they've got on paper, performances that I've seen so far. They've only lost one match, which was in midweek against Auxerre away from home. They did play with 10 men for the whole of the second half in that contest, and it was a bit of a weird one because they had two suspensions, and then the coach decided to rest four of the key players. So I think he just sort of thought he could get away with it. They started the season so well. He's thinking, I'll rest everyone midweek and get them fresh for the weekend. It really backfired on him because they lost the game and didn't score a goal. But what do you expect when you rest your 4 or 5 best attacking players? They're all going to be back for this fixture. I would expect Lorient to win it. They're on a minus 75 handicap at 2.05. And I would actually side with that one over the straight win because I just think they are a much better team than Nancy. Nancy are doing okay, but they're not in the same class as Lorient. And I would imagine they should rebound and they should have a fitness edge as well. So it's a pretty straightforward pick, this one, Kev. Lorient minus 0.75 is my first pick from the podcast. So we'll move to English Premier League now. And actually, I'm going to start with your thoughts on the early match, which is West Ham against Spurs, London derby, big fixture. How do you see this one going?
Not a game that Spurs have a particularly great record in either, is it? They've lost the last two at West Ham 1-0. Last game at Upton Park, and obviously last season. I guess last season's defeat at London Stadium was pretty much the game that finished off Spurs in terms of the league title and their chances, wasn't it? So I don't think Tottenham need extra motivation whenever they play West Ham, but if they do, they've certainly got it for sure. West Ham certainly don't need extra motivation, do they? They absolutely hate Spurs. If we think back sort of 10, 15 years, however long ago it was, there was that lasagna gate, wasn't there? And, these two really do not get along whatsoever. So, the game, Steve, that's for sure. In terms of a winner, I'm not sure I can pick one, to be honest. I think West Ham are improving. I expected them to improve anyway. He brought in a few players, didn't he, in the summer? They're slowly getting to grip with each other. Arnautovic is back from suspension now. He should kick them on a little bit more. They've got Noble back as well. But on the flip side of that, Tottenham really need to make the most of their away games, don't they? They can come out until they're blue in the face and tell me there's not a problem with Wembley, but there is. It's clear for all to see that there is. So these away games take on extra significance for Tottenham. That could make it edgy, perhaps, but, afternoon clash, derby. I fancy there'll be some goals, actually. Not strong enough to...
Going on.
Hello?
You there, mate?
Yeah, you there?
Oh, what happened there? Yeah,
I know.
there was some sort of connection.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened. Anyway, we were just what we were talking about. Yeah, I'm just going to ask you a question about Spurs again here. So, would you be confident if you had a large wedge on Spurs at about 1.60?
Probably not, to be honest. These games are so difficult to call, aren't they? West Ham, we saw it last season, didn't we? They will give their best performance of the season in this game. Can Tottenham match them? Well, they can do, that's for sure. But, they look a bit short to me. I wouldn't want to be backing them at odds on.
Okay, well, let's move on to a fixture you do have a bet in, and that is Leicester against Liverpool. This is the evening kickoff. And you think there's going to be quite a few goals in this one, don't you?
Yeah, I think if you look at the midweek game, all right, it was only a cup tie, Carabao Cup tie. And Liverpool obviously didn't give two hoots about it, really, judging by their team selection. But I think if you look at that game, we're going to get an open game of football here. Leicester were a little bit more positive in that game. They cared a little bit more about it, and so they should do, because Leicester can't win any other competition other than the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. I know they won the Premier League a couple of years ago, but that's not happening ever again. So I expect an open game here. One thing we know about Liverpool, and for all the stuff that's spoken about them, one thing we know about them is they cannot defend. It's a problem. It's been a problem probably going back, 2 years, 3 years, certainly ever since Klopp took over. And okay, an awful lot's being made of it, but rightly so, because they keep conceding the same goals. They cannot defend a set piece for love nor money. Their two centre-backs just do not have a clue what they're doing, and their goalkeeper's even worse. So I fancy that Leicester are going to fancy their chances going forward. The other reason why I think Leicester will fancy their chances is they love counter-attacking, and Liverpool play on the front foot. They'll look to get the likes of Coutinho, Salah, etc., into the game. So this will set up perfectly for Leicester to counter-attack. I don't think they're going to need to do too much in the way of breaking Liverpool down. There's no Lovren. There may not be no Matip. So they're obviously going to be a bit void at the back. But I do think Liverpool will score. That's the one area that they have no problems in. So I expect this to kind of kick off 2-2, 2-3, 3-2, something along those sort of lines.
Yeah, Liverpool do have a big problem, don't they, with defence? And you like the say over 2.75 here is your pick for the game. If you did have to stick your neck out for a winner, who would you choose?
I've seen a lot of stuff written about how Leicester's chances are high here based on that game in midweek. But what people don't seem to remember is that Liverpool could have been out of sight by halftime. It's very rare that I watch Carabao Cup games when I've seen the teams and see reserve teams being played. But I did happen to watch that game in the background, a few other things that I was doing. And every time I looked up, Liverpool had a shot at goal. They didn't take their chances. But you got to think that in this game, there's going to be Firmino, Sturridge, Salah, etc., around, more clinical players. And if Liverpool get the same sort of chances in this game, I would imagine they'll take more of them. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if they win the game. Ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if, their defence just caves in and Leicester win it. So if you pushed me into a team to win, Steve, I'd probably go Liverpool, but that's only tentatively.
Yeah, stick with the overs there. That looks the more safer selection. So that is your only pick in the Premier League for Saturday. But before we move on, I would like your thoughts on the Man City against Crystal Palace match, because I'd imagine Man City are a very popular selection here. It's top against bottom. They're scoring goals for fun. Crystal Palace are obviously, they haven't scored a single goal yet this season. Handicap on City -2.25. However, is there a worry because Pep Guardiola said that his players, it was a waste of energy, the Carabao Cup in midweek. And for those that start this one, are they going to have anything left in their tank, Kev? Is that a concern for Man City backers?
Well, he made a lot of changes in midweek, didn't he? I'm not concerned about that. I'd be more concerned that they rest themselves ahead of the Champions League game that comes up next week. That would be more of a concern. I mean, the value bet, based on the statistics that you just said, is Man City to win to 0, isn't it? But do you trust that City defence to keep a clean sheet? I don't. Couldn't possibly trust it. Even allowing for the fact that Palace haven't scored a goal. Let's see, all things being equal, this should be a home win, shouldn't it? But stranger things have happened than Roy Hodgson setting a side up to be organised at City. And sometimes they find organised back fours difficult to break down. Were they to do that, or were Palace to nick a goal on the break and go 1-0 up, and the pressure cranks up a little bit, and City may not be as up for it because they're looking at the Champions League? You never know. All things being equal, though, this is a home win. Whether they cover 2.25, I'm not completely sure. I could see this being 2-0. I don't think Hodgson's going to want to take a battering, is he? He'll be quite happy to come out sort of damage limitation and focus on their home games coming up. That would be my assessment of it.
I just think something tells me this is a trap. There's a trap here on this handicap. I think 2-0 is a big runner. It could be one of those where City might actually want to take their foot off the gas anyway because of the Champions League upcoming as well. So it could be a while they break them down, but I wouldn't want to bet on it either way, because if it ended 5 or 6-0, it wouldn't be a shock either, would it? So probably a good swerve in that instance. We're going to move on to English League 2, where you've got Just the one selection again, and it comes in the Accrington against Cheltenham game. And for regular listeners or readers of your website, it will come as no surprise which team you're siding with, Kev.
No, absolutely not, Steve. Both of these sides featured in my anti-post betting. Accrington at the top of the table, Cheltenham at the bottom of the table, and that's exactly where they are right now. Accrington are third in the table. I think Cheltenham are fourth from bottom. They might, I think they're still fourth from bottom because Forest Green lost on Friday night. And just look at the respective form guides. Accrington have already won 5 games this season. Cheltenham are yet to win on the road. They've played 4 games. They've only scored 1 goal in those 4 road games. They haven't scored in any of their last 3. Their goal came at Morecambe, which isn't exactly the hardest place to go and score goals, or at least I hope that's the case with the Luton going there on Tuesday night. Everything points to a home win here, Steve. I'm absolutely amazed that you can get the draw cover on Accrington that you can get in this game. I think they're the real deal of a side. Yeah, okay, they might not be the sort of glitzy glamour sides that Luton are, that Swindon are, that, dare I say, Coventry are. But they're a hard-working side. John Coleman's got some decent loan players in there. He's got a striker from Leeds, got a striker from another championship club that I can't remember who it is now, but they're both scoring goals. They're a side that are scoring goals. They're the leading scorers in the league alongside Luton. And if you take out Luton's 8 on the opening day of the season, Accrington would be well clear as leading scorers in the league. I just think they'll have too much for Cheltenham. It's a slight concern that Accrington played too many first teamers in the Checkatrade Trophy in midweek, but they did that for one reason and one reason only, because they want to keep their winning momentum. They did keep their winning momentum. They won in injury time. I don't think they'll need to leave it as late in this game.
This does look a big price, I must say. You can get as big as 2.20 on them winning the match. You're going to take the minus 0.25 draw cover. The simple fact is Cheltenham aren't a very good team, are they? I mean, just 2 wins all year. And, it's just the golfing class between the two does look quite vast. So you would say a very juicy price, well worth a decent stake.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you're taking the draw cover, it really is well worth a big stake. I cannot see Cheltenham winning the game. As I say, they've only scored 1 goal on the road in their 4 away games, and they've been to some pretty ordinary places, you'd have to say. They've been to Yeovil, they've been to Morecambe, which is where they scored their goal. And if they're not scoring goals in there, I just don't see them scoring at Accrington. Accrington are very, very good on their own patch, and I really expect a home win here.
Okay, Accrington minus 0.25. That is your solitary selection in English League 2 for Saturday. Before we move on, we're going to have to talk about Exeter City again, because I think anyone looking at the league table right now would see the statistics and see that they've won 7 out of 8 games. They're unbeaten. And they're starting to get a reputation as being punters' favourites this season, because the bookies they keep offering generous odds on them, even at home against crap teams. And Saturday they go away to Coventry and they're a plus 0.25 underdog. What are your thoughts on this fixture, Kev? Can Exeter keep their winning run going, or is this a bit of a trap game for them at Coventry?
Well, you would think this is a tricky game. I mean, Coventry, they might not be the real deal in terms of what they were sort of 15, 20 years ago. But they're a decent enough outfit, and they're a particularly good outfit at the Ricoh Arena, which is surprising, really, because the atmosphere there is absolutely dead at the best of times. So, they've got 3 wins out of 4 there. Their defeat came against Newport. In seasons gone by, that would be a concern, but it's not actually a concern this season. Newport started life pretty well. They won 1-0 there, Newport. It's the only goal they've conceded at home this season. So, yes, this is a trappy game for Exeter. That doesn't mean to say that they're not going to win it. Like you say, they're going pretty well, aren't they? They've only dropped 2 points all season, and that was fairly early on. They've won their last 5. They're scoring goals, scoring them for fun. They're not conceding. It's a perfect combination, really. But at some point, they're going to slip up somewhere along the line. And you've got to think there's 3 games in a week coming up here. Now could be the time that they, that they do just that. This is a tricky game. I think the game's bigger for Coventry than it is for Exeter, and I would imagine that they'll put an awful lot into this. If Exeter lose, they're still going to be top of the table. So I wouldn't want to be on Exeter, I don't think. Although, it wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world if they took a result away. But I respect Coventry's home form enough.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one there, because at some point their run will end. They are a good team, Exeter, but they weren't expected to be world beaters this year, were they? So, interesting thoughts there. Thanks for your picks in the English leagues, Kev. I think we'll move on to the French football now, and there's a bit of big team news going around with the absence of Neymar. Even you knew about this one. I think the whole world knows that he's going to be injured for Saturday's match at Montpellier, Kev. And for the casual bettor, it would be quite a big factor here. But I'm gonna stay and stick with PSG in this one. You'll be interested to hear.
Is he injured, or has he just chucked his toys out of pram?
Well, for the conspiracy theorists, then, you know, there's been rumours that he refuses to play with Cavani at the moment over the penalty situation where Cavani is not letting him take any penalties, and he's trying to take free kicks off him as well. The two had a bust up in the training ground, I think, certainly in the changing room at the back end of last week's match. The talk was they were both going to be sat down and be given multiple $1 million, incentives to work together. And I think that probably is the only long-term solution. You know, when you've got both of them on a bonus to be the top scorer in the team this season, they're going to want to take goals off each other, aren't they? So, yeah, I think it is a genuine injury, though. The talk is it's a foot injury, and PSG do not want to take any risk with their big star, especially with the Champions League match coming up in midweek. So, yes, an injury for Neymar, but I still think they'll have enough for Montpellier here. I went against Montpellier last week, and they won 1-0. But I did say that was a risky selection against Troyes. Montpellier, a very limited team. They've got a very boring coach. They've suddenly gone from a really entertaining outfit to a really boring outfit. Don't score many goals. There's only one way they're going to set up here. Park the bus, park the double-decker bus, park 10 buses, in fact. Just going to try and frustrate PSG all match. Even if they fall behind, they're probably going to do the same. Looks like a sort of a 2-0, 3-0 away win to me, Kev. So you can back the visitors minus 1.75. I think it was quite obvious last week that the way to actually beat PSG is to attack them. That's what Lyon did in Paris, and they were unlucky to lose it 2-0. They had quite a few chances to open the scoring or even equalise last week. And I think the blueprint to actually beat them, is to go toe-to-toe with them and actually give them something to think about at the back, because their defence on paper is their weak part of their team, even though there are some stars there like Thiago Silva, etc. I can't see Montpellier attacking them though, Kev. They're going to give them far too much respect. Even without Neymar, even if they play badly, they should still win it by a couple of goals. So minus 1.75, I will take the dangling carrot, because if Neymar was in the squad, I'm sure it'd be sort of minus 2.25 line.
Absolutely, yeah. We don't give out too much advice in terms of tactical advice on this show, but if we were to, we would give out the advice that teams that do attack PSG, try and attack in the right goal rather than scoring them in your own one. You've got a chance of beating them then. Like Lyon, who decided to score 2 own goals and lost that game. Let's go on to your second bet, Steve. You mentioned a risky pick last week. On the face of it, you're taking another one this week because you're taking the bottom side.
Yeah, well, it involves Troyes as well. Metz against Troyes, but I think Metz are going to beat them. Metz lost their first 5 games and then won last week at Angers, which is a pretty good win, actually, because Angers, at the moment, that's their only defeat. I will let Metz off a little bit, though, because they've already faced PSG and Monaco and Bordeaux, who are going very well this year. So I think some of their defeats can be explained. The simple fact is Metz are the better team. Not by a million miles, but Troyes, I think, on paper, they're the worst squad in the league. They've grafted hard for some results this season. They won't go down without a fight. I mean, this is going to be a bit of a nervy encounter, I think. Under 2.5 backers would probably be siding with the under for sure. Maybe even it's a 0-0 contender. But I think Metz have got enough about them to win this game. They're experienced enough in this league now to know they've got to take points in fixtures like this. Metz do have a good record against the poorer outfits in the league. And I'm surprised you can get a big handicap minus 0.25 at 1.87. I thought Metz would be odds on to win the match outright here. Being honest, Troyes just don't have the quality, and the visitors are also missing their 3 key players, one of whom is a 40-year-old Benjamin Nive, incredibly still going on strong. I would still have him as their key player, even though he's that age in the top flight. But Metz minus 0.25, Kev.
Yeah, Metz minus 0.25 to go along with PSG minus 1.75. There are Steve's two bets in French League on Saturday. Let's head across Europe and we'll go to Norway, Steve. Obviously, most of the fixture list we will cover in our Sunday podcast, but there is one game on Saturday, and similar to the game that you've just covered, it involves the side bottom of the table. That's Viking. They head to Haugesund, and you are expecting to see some goals.
Yeah, this is a Rogaland derby, a local rivalry between two teams who don't really like each other much. Now, last week I talked about Haugesund being a big under team in this league, and I think they are in general. But Viking at the moment are a big over team for many different reasons. They're desperate for points at the moment, so if they fall behind in the game, they've got to react. They can't even settle for a draw, Kev. They've got to go for a victory. So even if this was, say, 1-1 with 10 minutes to go, they're not going to hold on for a 1-1 draw. They've got to push for all 3 points. I think they can suck Haugesund into a sort of a shootout, you know. Haugesund, at some point, they will explode again. They do have players who want to attack. They tend to focus on defence a lot, but Viking are going to give them so many opportunities here to actually, you know, exploit the Viking back line that there should be at least 3 goals, I think. It'll be one of them sort of frantic derby encounters. Forget about statistics here. Don't even look at statistics. Just think about the situation. You know, 2 teams with a lot of pride. They want to beat each other. One team is absolutely desperate to win. They have to win. And, you know, Haugesund are under no real pressure at the moment. They can just push it as well. There's no real value in a draw for either of them. So I'm actually going to be really aggressive here and take over 2.75 goals at 2.13. You could easily just take over 2.5, but I just see this one exploding with at least 3 goals, probably 4 or 5 in there. Because if Viking do collapse, then it could get a bit ugly for them. But at the same time, I think they're not without a chance either. They're not as bad as the league position suggests. They will attack. And yeah, I think this will be more open fixture than expected. There's always a risk in a derby that it can be really tight and cagey. But, you know, my personal theory is it will be the opposite on Saturday.
Yep, we like aggressive. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's the one bet from Norway on Saturday. As I say, we will go into detail in that league in the podcast that we do for Sunday's matches. Let's finish off then, Steve, by heading to America. The regular season of Major League Soccer is starting to come towards an end. It's just a month or so left in that. But we've got 8 games in the league on Saturday night. Sadly, none of them are on television in the UK. So we're going to have to watch them all on the bookmaker streams. But they begin fairly early on when New York City host Houston Dynamo. I say host, but I do believe this game is in Connecticut, not Yankee Stadium. I didn't actually get a chance to look up why that is, but do you think that will affect New York City?
Yeah, it would, because at the end of the day, their own, you know, when they play at Yankee Stadium, its dimensions are really unique in MLS. It's so compact, isn't it? Narrow. And I think I think a lot of the time it does give New York City FC a big advantage. Sometimes opposition can come there and take a real advantage. It's coming from the Pratt and Whitney Stadium in Connecticut, like you say. And it's some sort of to do with a scheduling conflict I did hear. So they were forced to change the venue. Houston aren't very good away from home, though, are they? You could say that about most of the MLS, but they especially struggle on the road. I don't know this one. It's a tricky fixture. There's a little bit of doubt with David Villa still. What will the fan base be like? How many will travel here? I mean, if I had to stick my neck out, I'd probably put it on the overs, actually, Kev, but I couldn't do it with any real authority. I mean, how do you see this one going?
I'm struggling, to be honest, Steve. Like you say, will Villa play? What sort of fitness is he in? That kind of thing. We'd certainly need to know that beforehand. Can't possibly believe, unless Villa plays and they make it known well in advance, that there's going to be too much of a crowd. Houston, I never like backing them away. I think they're quite an easy side to predict in this league. Back them at home and pose them away. But I don't know. One thing I would say is New York look awfully short to me. Wouldn't want to be backing them at odds on, even allowing for the fact that Houston are terrible. You back them at odds on and then Villa's only on the bench or something, and all of a sudden you might well have done your dough. Yeah,
I agree with you. They do look bloody short, don't they? I'd leave that one alone. Let's talk about New England Revolution against Toronto FC. both teams have been involved in some rather sensational scorelines recently. Toronto lost 5-3 at home in midweek. I mean, I never ever saw that one coming at all. Did they just take their eye off the ball? I mean, there's doubts over Giovinco and Altidore again, but that wasn't the reason why they lost that game. It was the defence, which is usually watertight, conceding 5 goals. And to be fair, New England is not an easy place to go. No one likes travelling there. They've got a good home record. I think recent results have pretty much knocked them out of the playoff race, though. So, motivation might be questionable there. Looks a tough one to me, Kev. Who do you see winning it?
Yeah, tough one to me as well, Steve. Like you say, if Toronto taking their eye off the ball, obviously they're going to go into the playoffs pretty much, well, near enough certain to be top of the table in the East, aren't they? It would take some kind of miracle for them not to be top of the table. And in fact, they're going to win the Supporters' Shield, aren't they? They'll have home field advantage right the way through the playoffs. I don't know. I find this one a tricky game to call. I never like backing sides that have played in midweek per se, I have to admit. Although Toronto only really played for 30 minutes in midweek, didn't they? Because for the first hour, they were an absolute shambles. We was watching that game on a stream whilst we had the Atlanta game on television, and couldn't really believe what we was watching. I thought the colours had got mixed up at one point. It was absolutely madness. When Montreal went 2-0 up, I was wondering what was going on. When they ended up 3 and 4, you kind of thinking, yeah, it was unbelievable, and it was only the fact that they threw the kitchen sink at them that it even got anywhere near sort of respectable for Toronto. Tough one to call this. You'd think there'd be goals, though. Certainly the way Toronto defended in midweek, there will be.
You'd think there'd be goals, but if I'm the coach there, the first thing I'm saying is, right, we're going to try and keep a clean sheet. But that's just thinking of theory. The thing is, right, they could lose every single remaining game and probably still win the Supporters' Shield. So that's the concern with Toronto FC. I've got a feeling they're going to go into the postseason and probably get beat first up. Seen it before many a time where the team that wins the Supporters' Shield struggles. So let's move on to a match where we do have some picks in. Interesting clash here. Columbus Crew against New York Red Bulls. You're going with overs. I'm going with Columbus Crew. What's your thoughts on the fixture, Kev, overall?
I think it'll be an open game, Steve. I think both sides are going to want to win the game. You look at the table, they're 5th and 6th, aren't they, in the Eastern Conference. I think it's a bigger game for the home side, and I'd certainly support your bet coming up. But there's still a chance that they can finish sort of 3rd or 4th. And anyone that's new to MLS, we should point out, if you finish 3rd or 4th, you'll host 5th or 6th in a one-off game to start off the playoffs. So there is a sort of something on coming 3rd and 4th. It's not like, oh, well, we're in 6th place now and that's good enough. If you can get 3rd or 4th, there is an advantage in it. So I think both sides are going to go and want to win this game. There's every chance that they could be taking each other on in the playoffs at some point as well. So there's a chance to put the marker down. I don't think either of these sides are particularly good defensively. I've still not worked out what this horror formation that New York Red Bulls play is. But the one thing it does do is it gets people down the park for them. So then you often see them absolutely flood the box when they go forward. And Columbus Crew aren't necessarily the best defensively either. Some of their tackling, I watch them week in, week out, and some of their tackling, they just fly in from here, there, and everywhere. The amount of fouls they concede around their box, and even in it, is mystifying, really. The other reason why I like the over, Steve, they either win or they lose, don't they? Columbus Crew. I know they've drawn their last 2, but by and large, they don't do draws this a lot. They've only done 5 in 30 games, and as I say, 2 of them have come in their last 2. So I think that says to me that if they're level, sort of going deep into the game, they'll push for a winner, even if it means that they'll lose the game. I think over 3 goals got every chance of landing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a good price as well. I think it's about 2.05 around that sort of price anyway. I mean, one thing I've got to remember here is New York Red Bulls played in midweek in the US Open Cup and they lost it. So it's a real blow, isn't it, that? They lost at Sporting Kansas City 2-1. And I just wonder, I mean, coupled with Montreal's win, I mean, both of these two teams, that is the last result they would want to see. Montreal winning 5-3 midweek. Suddenly, it might, the pressure's on again, isn't it? Certainly, Red Bulls are 3 points clear of Montreal, Columbus 5, but they played 2 extra games. So, yeah, a victory is worth its weight in gold here for either, but I'm happy to side with the Crew, 2.07. I don't think there's any point backing on a quarter ball handicap because they usually either win or lose. yeah, a couple of draws recently, but it's the manner of the matches that they will not settle for a draw even with 1 minute left in injury time. They just go for it. So logic would suggest there's no real value overall on the long term in backing them on a handicap. So straight on the nose from me, Kev, here, 2.07 on the Crew. Yeah, back in the overs. So, 4-0 would do very nicely for us in this instance. I don't think it will be 4-0. I think Red Bulls will score as well. But, I think hopefully we'll get a good bit of profit from this fixture.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. 3-1 would be absolutely fine. You're right. They've drawn the last two, the Crew, but look at who they've drawn against. Sporting Kansas City and Vancouver Whitecaps, arguably the best two sides in the Western Conference right now, so don't hold that against them. There's one more game that we've got to pick in this week. It's not me. It comes from you. Western Conference clash, Minnesota United, FC Dallas. We don't need to go into FC Dallas's form. For some reason, it's came off the cliff. It's a shambles. Minnesota United, every bit as terrible, but they did win last week, surprisingly, Montreal. How do you see this one going?
Must-win match for Dallas. They're a tempting price, actually. Shade of odds against. I mean, they are a much better team on paper. But I think this will be a game with goals in it. So I'm going to be taking over 3. A good price, 2.09. Minnesota, I mean, fair play to them. They've been relatively competitive recently. I certainly never saw them beating Montreal for the weekend. Just going for it at the moment. There's no reason for them to be defensive at all. Having a lot of fun playing the football, entertaining their fans, that is a big thing for them now. So they're not going to be holding on for a 0-0 draw. Dallas, they've got to go for it. In my opinion here, they can't draw it either. 0-0 last week, but that was against a much better team, Seattle Sounders. And maybe going away from home will suit them. The home fans are getting a bit frustrated with Dallas right now. And against a team which has struggled to defend throughout the majority of the season, Minnesota, let's be honest. Even recently in their improved form, they've conceded goals and plenty of them. It's been goals scored that have got them the points. So I think over 3. I don't know who's going to win this, actually. I certainly wouldn't stake anything on Dallas, but maybe something like a sort of 3-2 away win or 3-2 home win on the cards. Dallas, I say, they can't afford to draw games at the minute. Not this sort of fixture anyway. So I fancy the goals in this one. And just before we sign off for the pod, I want your thoughts on one final match, Kev, because on paper it's a bit of an obvious pick, but I've been burnt by them recently. Vancouver against Colorado Rapids. I can't explain how Colorado have recently won at Houston Dynamo, drawn with New York City, and not too long ago they even managed to draw 0-0 at Dallas. I mean, it should be an easy Vancouver win, shouldn't it? But they're going to be up against a double-decker bus.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I scrawled on my notice board alongside my desk quite early on in this MLS season: do not get involved in Colorado Rapids matches because I can't predict them. I think they're terrible to watch, which is one of the reasons why I can't really predict them. I fall asleep when I watch them, and every time I do think that I can pick them, I completely get it completely wrong. You're right, Vancouver, it should be an easy win. Certainly if they want to sort of push on and win the Western Conference, it's a game that they need to win. But I'm always wary about taking big handicaps at this stage of the season, Steve. It's just about winning for them, isn't it? Then it's not about running up cricket scores or anything like that. And that in itself puts me off. For me personally, it's a game to steer clear of. I really can't pick it. I mean, if you're telling me you've got to put them in an accumulator, then I would pick Vancouver, but I don't fancy anything in the game myself.
Well, I watched that match against Houston because obviously I was on Houston in that game. And just a few days before, they'd lost. Colorado had lost 3-0 against LA Galaxy of all teams. And then they turn up to Houston and they just defend their asses off for 90 minutes. Literally boring football, time wasting. Players going down injured, everything like that. How can a team do that when there's nothing to play for anymore? They're rock bottom of the league. This is an entertainment league as well. And they're turning up doing that. It just defies logic, in my opinion. So when a team's doing that, maybe it is alarm bells ringing. Do not get involved with them. They're bloody awful to watch. And if you do get in behind them, Tim Howard usually comes up with some worldy saves, doesn't he? You watch Vancouver probably win this easily now, but The 0-0 does. I do fear the 0-0. I've got to be honest, or even a 1-0. I mean, sweat your arse off for 90 minutes for a push. So I'm going to leave that match alone. But interesting your thoughts on it. Okay, we're going to be back for Sunday. All the leagues that we cover respectively. Let's hope for a profitable Saturday. Best of luck with your selections, Kev, and we look forward to the podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, cheers, Steve. Same to you, and I'll catch up with you Saturday night.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Goodbye.